Time for Type 40, your Doctor Who podcast from the Spacebook for the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's king of the geeks, your designated driver. God, that went up a lot higher than I thought it would. Your designated driver and mouth runner, here to open up Doctor Who conversation once again here on our free-speaking, big-thinking show for everyone. That's whatever decade or century you started watching, reading, or listening along to those ongoing adventures of our hero, Doctor Who. We talk about it all on this show. We even throw in the odd laugh or two here or there, now and again, if we're lucky, along the way. So come and step into our TARDIS in this 60th anniversary year with us here on Type 40. Yeah, back in the TARDIS for another one, I'm happy to say. And yeah, there I am. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so back in the TARDIS with the warm glow of copper and a bright lime green and all that jazz. A refreshing look, I think, and another fellow traveller to pull back aboard. Make yourselves comfy. I intend to for a casual catch-up with the FPN's very own airtime lord. He's the culture clashing, the true believing, the one and only Mr. Kyle Wagner.
Well, first of all, I love what you've done with the place. The copper might need a little bit of dulling spray on the copper, though. Sometimes the reflections throw me just a little bit. But I got to admit, I love the neon lighting. I love the feel of it. This is considering where we're coming from. This is an absolutely beautiful set. I was going to say that right now. Let's get that monkey out of the way. I mean, this is a night and day difference.
So much has happened since we last spoke, hasn't it, Carl? Because we only seem to manage to combine our time streams 2 or 3 times a year, don't we? But whenever we do, there's always so much to go back on and get into. And we throw each other messages now and again, don't we? Have you heard this? Have you seen that? What's the truth in this? What do you make about that? But here we're gonna go into all of it, aren't we? And cover as much as we can in as a short a period of time, I suppose, as we can before our own Zyton 7 crystals don't get fried with an overload of geekiness, because the 60th anniversary year already, it's like new Doctor Who news practically every single week.
Oh, it's crazy. But before we get started, sir, if I may have a moment, because we just Fandom Podcast Network just had its anniversary here just not that long ago, just a few months back. I just happened to be in my busiest time in real world work, so it was hard to acknowledge it. But around this time, about 5-6 years ago, a certain podcast got started it was myself and our other co-founder, who is off doing great things with the Roddenberry Network now, Norman Lau, kind of started this little Doctor Who thing, and all of a sudden this Dan Hadley appeared out of nowhere saying, I'm a passionate fan, I want to take care of it, I want to be part of this. And you know what, he was so great at it. We threw him the ball and he has run with it so huge. We are so proud of him and how much he's grown Type 40 and being part of the Fandom Podcast Network, even though he's grown it beyond what, he's put so much hard work into it. And I just wanted to just say before we get started how proud everybody here stateside is of you and what you've done with the fandom not only for the Fandom Podcast Network with this show, but what you've done growing not only Type 40, but the Spacebook and the podcaster and presence just within the community of podcasting, YouTube, all of it that you've become. And it's just been an amazing job by you with nothing but incredibly hard work and effort on your end.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be appreciated. I say it's only been 5 years. I can't remember a time now when I didn't do this. That's how strange it would seem now to not do this and talk to you and everybody else.
It's all my fault, isn't it?
Kind of.
Yeah, that's kind of thought. But I just wanted to make sure that the Type 40 listeners who've joined over the years and stuff know just where you started and how far you've come and how proud we are of you.
Yeah, it's coming up to the 5th anniversary of the publication of the first episode of Type 40, and like that,
I feel old now. I might be due for a regeneration here at any moment. So just saying, if I change during the show,
don't say that, because we've got enough to contend with as it is. Doctor Who seems to be the only show on TV, actually the only show that I can really think of, that has ever had 2 leads at the same time, but playing the same bloke. This isn't the Dukes of Hazzard or Chips or Starsky and Hutch. We have 2 reigning doctors, Kyle. Is that how it seems to you as well?
It does and it doesn't. I'm actually going to give BBC, Disney Plus, and we got to talk about that too. And we've talked about it a little bit. You and I had a deep conversation about that. But BBC, Bad Wolves Productions, Disney Plus, huge props, because I think they've actually handled this marketing of these two doctors brilliantly. Obviously, the focus is on Tennant right now, as it should be. But what I'm loving is the little bit of Ncuti that they're giving us here and there, especially in all the different outfits. And I heard, I want to say this because I know this has been a sticking point for some people. One of the things I heard on another podcast that is doing their first time with one of their people is a first time dive into Doctor Who, but they were talking about how excited they were for the Tennant specials and for Ncuti's era to start, and they were talking about all the different costumes, and they brought up an excellent point, and I think it's something we need to think about more with this. The budget increase in Doctor Who because of Disney Plus and Disney being involved with it now affords them to do more things, like give the Doctor more outfits, because he's going to be to fit different times he's in, instead of the Doctor always having some kind of either his off costume or off wardrobe that doesn't fit. We're going to see Ncuti become maybe this more of a chameleon of type of Doctor who tends to fit in more with the times he's in. And I think if that's how they're going with that, I think it's going to be very interesting. And I like the concept of it. Plus, I think it's going to be fun. I think it could add another fun aspect to the Doctor. And I know some people are like, no, the Doctor has to have the one look, and that's tradition. But is that, in this case, if we're going, maybe it's something to where maybe at the end of Ncuti's first season, he decides on his outfit. Maybe it's one of those things that they run it for a while and play it up. That's the kind of fun I think you need to have with Doctor Who to get people. And again, I think we're at the same place we were with Eccleston. We're trying to get new people in, and I think this is a way to do it without really going bonkers of changing tradition, much like maybe our last run tried to do.
I mean, I will say that yes, it has been a bit of a bone of contention. Some people are shocked by this. I've said several times, I'm not going to go back on what I've always said, in that the silhouette of each Doctor is incredibly important to to act as a sort of marker of the character. It's sort of those silhouettes, they are what endure throughout the decades. I think even when the actors return to the parts 10, 20, 30 years on, in some cases, that as long as they can still sort of fill that silhouette, people will accept maybe a wrinkle or two around the eyes, and the fact they don't run as quickly as they used to. They can accept that. If that actor still fills that silhouette and makes us feel the same way we did when we were 10. Having said that, I'm interested by these choices. I'm interested by Ncuti Gatwa as an actor. I've still not really seen him do anything. But the thing about the character of the Doctor is that each actor, to really make it work, has to meld it, mesh it together with their own personality, their own inclinations. And I get the impression that Ncuti Gatwa himself, Kyle, is a bit of a clothes horse. He enjoys fashion. He enjoys clothes. He seems to experiment a lot with style, much to the amusement of a lot of people, other people who come onto the podcast. And whilst I think we could say, that's women's clothes, or that makes him look like Shaft, or that makes him look like whatever, I never feel like I'm not looking at somebody who's having fun and who doesn't seem like they're connecting with the character. I've seen him say precisely one line, I may be jumping the gun, but none of this is a deal breaker for me. I'm happy if they want to not exactly break the mold, but sort of push outward from it a little bit and challenge some of my perceptions, and not sacrifice holy cows as such, but as you say, just go a little more global with it, and maybe think a little bigger and try these new things. And if they don't work, it looks to me like they've still got a good actor in the right role at the right time to fall back on his natural instincts to really power it through and settle on what will be the look. And hopefully by the middle point in his era, there will be some sort of silhouette which will be the enduring marker. I don't know.
Well, from what I've seen too of the outfit choices, they have a similar style to him. They're not like they're not all over the place. He has some kind of jacket on, a shirt underneath, pants, kind of like what he has on here. So even here, he's got the jacket. He's got there's always a jacket or something like that. But I think again, it comes down to here. Not only I know how important the silhouette of the Doctor is, but so is the personality of the Doctor.
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even think Peter Capaldi truly got his Doctor personality until about halfway through season 2. And I think I think one of the great things that's about this situation is because Ncuti is getting time to explore his version of the Doctor, to develop it without having this pressure of, I'm coming in right here. He's now coming in after David Tennant, who's going to get interest back up again. So he's not coming in trying to necessarily, I hate putting it this way, but I think it's the only way I can put it, coming in to be the franchise savior. I think that's what David Tennant is for. David Tennant is to get things back on track, so then he can hand the baton proper to Ncuti. So Ncuti, who I think is going to do I'm knowing what I've seen of him, and I have gone back and watched some of the early episodes of Sex Education that he did, and he's very good in that and enjoyable. I think he's going to be a good Doctor, and from what I've seen about it is, it's something to where it feels like he's genuinely excited to be the Doctor. He's there because he's excited to be there. He's not there because a friend put them in the role.
Naming no names. Obviously, he seems an excitable character, doesn't he? Did you see him at the coronation concert? That was screened on British television, and millions of people watched it. I know it was transmitted all over the world, but did you manage to catch any of it and see Ncuti getting his Shakespeare on and jive in there?
No, and I think it's another good thing, because I think what he's going to do is I think he's going to bring an energy for what they were hoping to get with Jodie, which was a new generation of fans. I think Ncuti going to bring that energy and some of the sensibilities of a younger generation, but he's still going to give us something as older Who fans that will respect where Doctor Who has come from. And I think that is the biggest obstacle Doctor Who is fighting right now, is that you have the old school fans who don't want things to change, and you have the fans out there that just want something totally different. And I think it's just, it speaks to the way the world is too. I think they're trying to find something in the middle. And I think when they can figure out that amalgamation of everything, and I think Ncuti's the kind of person that from what I've seen of interviews with him, I love, there was an event he was at with Peter Capaldi where Peter Capaldi was awarded, and Capaldi spoke so incredibly highly of him, and Ncuti just gave him nothing but the ultimate respect. This is somebody who I think truly understands the importance of the Doctor, and understands what he is doing in the role.
It is, obviously, it's a 60th anniversary year. We're about to embark on what members of the production team, Kyle, on social media, I think in a blind moment of absolute transparency, have described as the second reboot of Doctor Who. And I'm not sure how many people saw this, but it was Danny Hargreaves, the special effects guy, the returning special effects guy, who's publicly said that. But Bad Wolf and Russell T Davies and BBC Studios, right from the very beginning, from the earliest press releases, with the news that it was going to a new home, have always labelled this as all new Doctor Who. And this is something that I've been constantly repeating. I've done my bit to constantly repeat, to underline to people how this is, we are where we are. It's that simple. You may have liked what was directly before it or not. If you enjoyed it, I wouldn't want to take that away from you in all seriousness, but this is a second reboot. This was required, and this is all new, for better or worse. It's exciting. Yeah, it is a bit of a squeaky bum time for some of us older fans, but I think we're better off just buckling up for the ride and being as open as we can be, and celebrating a new era, and the fact that people are talking about this show again.
I think you hit on the head about, and I agree. I think it is a bit of a second rebirth. We're going into, let me put it this way, we're going into the third chapter of Doctor Who, in my opinion. obviously we're talk classic Who from the first Doctor through the eighth Doctor. The second generation of Who from the ninth Doctor through our Jodie Whittaker, and now I think we're starting a new chapter of Doctor Who. But the thing is, we're doing it with a familiar face and somebody who's already knows how to properly. I don't want to say reboot Doctor Who, but breathe life into Doctor Who. And I think in this case too, when you add in the combination of having Bad Wolf much more heavily involved again, will kind of at least puts at ease some of the old school Doctor Who fans. You add in the Disney Plus thing for the worldwide distribution, which means Doctor Who is going to be back on a platform that is going to make it be talked about and make it be recognized, plus the influx of money that goes into the show from this. And I think the BBC realizing in a way, whether they intend to or not, that they're taking a step back out of it. And when you have such a popular studio as Bad Wolf involved, and then you add Disney into it, I think the BBC's, they're involved, but they're not as heavily involved as they were.
No, nowhere near. They've pretty much handed the keys to Bad Wolf. Bad Wolf are a big concern in the British TV industry, and this is a very precise time for them where they stepped up drastically. If this version of Doctor Who fails, it won't matter how successful his Dark Materials and I Love Suze and I Hate Suze and all their other productions are. If they make a balls up of Doctor Who, the entertainment industry, the fan base, and the general audience will be unforgiving, shall we say? So this has to work.
I think it's,
for everybody involved has to work.
I think it's going to work because I think you're getting somebody who knows the Doctor and knows what the importance of the Doctor is. You're getting somebody. Yes, Russell T Davies has always had his agendas, but the difference between Chris Chibnall and Russell T Davies is Russell T Davies has never hit you over the head like a hammer with his agendas. Yes, he's worked them into his storylines. Every writer does.
And he's been very clear about them as well. He's always been very honest and open about what his stories are about and the people that he wishes to tell stories about.
But when he did put characters that may have reflected his thoughts or values in there, he wrote them in a way that they didn't feel like they were being shoehorned in. And he wrote them in a way that they would be beloved or at least, recognized and things like that and things of that nature. And again, when you have Disney in there almost being like a buffer wall between BBC and Bad Wolf, because now it's not, the BBC isn't throwing in as much money as they used to. I think that's going to give Russell a little bit more freedom to tell the stories he wants to tell. And like I said, I had just going off past experience, and I know some people don't like Russell T Davies and some of the stuff he's done more recently after his run on Who, but I at least have faith in him that he is not going to force a Doctor upon us that is strictly what he believes the Doctor should be. He's going. I never felt, that's the one thing I felt, whether it was Eccleston or Tennant, I never felt like this was a Doctor that the writer was telling me this is what the Doctor should be. And I did feel that way with Jodie. I always felt like Chibnall was always like, no, this is how the Doctor should be. Just like I never really ever felt Moffat did that either. I think what works with Russell T Davies and with Moffat was they played off the energy of the actor who was the Doctor at the time to help write their stories. And as they kind of worked together.
They became informed by their beings, by their instincts, the choices that they would make. And it was as if together they rounded out those characters and interlaced the Doctor and the actual person so that it would be believable and it would be enough for the actor, I felt, Kyle, to feel confident that in playing this character, who he is, for all intents and purposes, may as well be a god, as someone once said in the show, to find the, if not the humanity inside that, then the soul of the character.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is too, at least in Ncuti's case, is that from the look of it, it's going back to you have your one main companion. Maybe there's a secondary companion, much like an Arthur Darvill was, or even Mickey back in the day with Rose. But there's not going to be like this whole group of companions. And I think that, especially for the first season with Ncuti, that's going to be so important, because then you're going to get to grow both your doctor and your new companion without trying to fit 3 or 4 people and develop 3 or 4 characters and develop that relationship. You're developing this one relationship between this doctor and this companion. And I think it's just when it's all said and done, when Ncuti's run starts, because I think obviously our Tenet specials, those are a totally different situation.
Different animal, yeah.
Even though it's a quote unquote different doctor, it's still David Tennant, and it's still Catherine Tate, and it's people who've been there. They're climbing into old shoes. When Ncuti starts his run as the 15th, he's going to I think he's going to be able to get something that I still believe to this day, and that Jodie Whittaker never got, was the chance to actually create his own doctor.
Let's hope so. I'm excited. You've seen a damn sight more of Ncuti Gatwa in action than I have. I've seen so little. That was largely it on the Coronation concert, and that, and a couple of adverts I've seen that he's done. And at the moment, I'm not seeing anything that I don't like of his performances, certainly. So yeah, I'm staying tuned. I front a Doctor Who podcast, but I haven't got that creeping feeling that I had in more so in 2018, to be fair, that they've got it wrong. I'm not feeling that, certainly not yet.
You know what I think part of it is too, Dan, is that we're not getting force fed.
It could be. With all of that excitement, I just want to ask you, really, I suppose, about the Disney angle too, because obviously with all this, as you said, all this new money, and if not bigger ideas, then certainly ideas and resources that could have been out of bounds before to the new Doctor Who from 2005 to 2017. With all of that also comes the ability to pick names out of the Rolodeck, I suppose. Call up people who are faithful and associates, I suppose, of a given brand. And so I wondered if you've been keeping track of some of the casting announcements for all new Doctor Who that have been sort of popping up over the last week or two. First of all, I think you'll probably know who this is. Indira Varma was announced as joining the cast.
I got to talk, because this is the beautiful, the stunning, the amazingly talented Indira Varma, who I have been a fan of for a very, very long time, going all the way back to my first introduction. She's been in a few movies, but she did a show here in the States called The Human Target, and she did the second season of that.
I love The Human Target,
and she was phenomenal in the second season. There isn't, of course, it's technically not her debut, since it's technically not her debut in the Doctor Who universe, because
she's been around for a very, very long time.
Well, let's not she was in the first episode of Torchwood. She was a member of Torchwood. Yeah. Her character was. So she has a little familiarity. Obviously, Game of Thrones, she's been huge in that. But she is an absolute talent and wonderful actress. And I was so excited to hear that she's playing the Duchess. Now, I'm not quite sure where this character is falling within the storyline as of yet. But I am, if she's going to be heavily involved, whether she's on the side of the Doctor or she's against the Doctor, either way, you have me sold right here.
Me too. I've said many, many times when people have asked me, Kyle, what would your ideal woman look like? And I've often said, well, I would take Indira Varma's head and put it on Indira Varma's body. It's pretty much Indira Varma, and has been for about 30 years. I've had a crush on this woman for the longest time, since the mid-90s when I first saw her in a film. I think you probably know, some of you may know the film I'm talking about. But yes, she has had...
If I know which film you're talking about, I think any male who has blood running.
You
through
can say it.
his body.
Red-blooded male. Yeah.
Every red-blooded male had a crush on her from that film.
Absolutely gorgeous. And she used to do a one of those kind of Elvira strands on a cable channel in Britain. She was part of the Syfy channel, and she would introduce pulp sort of B movies on a Friday night, sort of about 11 o'clock at night, in character as a kind of as a witch who, depending on the film that she was introducing, would change her outfit and sort of play up to the camera and things like that. Indira Varma is an actress who I have always thought, again, she makes really interesting choices. You never really know where she's going to turn up next, but always seems to be having a lot of fun. But on top of that, she's award-winning too. But yeah, I thought that there was no chance that she would ever turn up in Doctor Who. And looking back, particularly in light of recent developments and other people that have come back to the show in new parts, I think that was obviously, I feel really stupid now, because here she is. The BBC announced on the 24th of May, 2023, that, Indira Varma will be joining the cast of Series 14 of Doctor Who. And, I remember her as, I think everybody remembers her as Susie Costello in Torchwood, one of the original cast members of Torchwood. So she was in that first episode, as you say. And then she turned up again a few episodes later, to the surprise of everybody, because, of course, she was killed in the pilot episode, wasn't she? And it was one of those jaw-dropping moments, I suppose, that Russell T Davies pulled out of the pack early doors on Torchwood to make it clear to us that this really wasn't Doctor Who. The idea that she's playing this character that then they've mentioned the Duchess before. I think Russell T Davies has mentioned the Duchess in his column in Doctor Who magazine and in little press releases. So I think this character isn't going to be a 5-minute role. It looks like it's going to be a pretty big deal. And obviously,
I couldn't see her coming in unless she was getting a fairly good-sized role at this point.
Because she's just come off the back of several, as you mentioned Game of Thrones earlier on, but that's just one, isn't it, of a whole list of great dramas. You mentioned The Human Target, but there's also a key role in Luther as well, and a recent turn in the Disney Plus show Obi-Wan Kenobi, where she played I suppose you could say she was a turncoat familiar of Obi-Wan, wasn't she? It was one of those. It wasn't exactly a complex character, but because she's got such dramatic weight, I think she's getting to that age now where she brings that weight. She's not just a very beautiful woman, but she's got all of this experience behind her. So she was a memorable character in that, I felt. She's 50 years old, English actress of Indian, Italian, and Swiss descent, and yes, lots of awards for stage work as well as what she's done on the big and the small screen.
But real quick, Dan, I want to throw out a couple other things that she's been doing that have had a little bit more attention to in the States. Is she did 8 episodes of the first season of the Amazon original show Carnival Row with Orlando Bloom.
Oh yeah.
And then recently she's been doing another Amazon animated project where she's the voice of Allura in The Legend of Vox Machina, which is also on Amazon, which has a very interesting cult popular following to it.
So much. She does seem to like, either she likes geeky shows and movies and productions, or they like her. I don't care which it is. I'm just glad that she's around. So we've got a quote here from Indira, and she said, "I'm thrilled to be in Doctor Who and particularly excited to be crossing cosmic paths with Ncuti as the Doctor and looking forward to creating interplanetary mischief with him. I loved playing Susie Costello for Russell T Davies in Torchwood, so I'm thrilled to be entering this world again." That's a great quote. That's a really interesting quote. Interplanetary mischief, a character called the Duchess. It would appear to me a safe bet that the Duchess is a Time Lord of some sort.
I'm wondering that, or I'm also kind of picking up, and this is just me, maybe she's kind of going to be carrying on the tradition of a river song, not maybe as a love interest for the Doctor, but
a recurring presence.
A river song, a Missy, this character, somebody who's a female but keeps the Doctor on his toes.
Yeah, I again, when you see names like this pop up, they're going to be part of the show, it reassures you that not just that they're going next level, but that this brand still has a certain cachet that people like Indira, who, all joking apart, have this huge list of roles, and she seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I wouldn't say she's the kind of actress who could choose her roles, but probably can't be that far off. And she would still choose to go into Doctor Who, to be associated with Doctor Who, when obviously the last run of episodes wasn't that well received. That name still has a power, and like I say, maybe loyalty to Russell T Davies.
It's Russell T. I think it's Russell T Davies. And from what I've read and there's a lot of people who think very, very highly of Ncuti, and it's a lot of people that are his peers and who really think this is a young actor who's going to leave a mark when his career is over. He'll have left his mark. And so I think there's some of that too. I think there's some energy there that people want to work with Ncuti as much as Russell T Davies too. So I truly do believe, I think they have some of that magic in the bottle again, like they did with a young David Tennant and a young Matt Smith.
We can only hope. We've got a quote from Russell T Davies as well. He said, "I'm overjoyed to be reunited with Indira after our Torchwood days, and this part is truly spectacular." And Russell he has a habit of saying that, as we'll come to in a moment. But a whole new audience will be hiding behind the settee when the Duchess unleashes her terror. He's never one for underplaying anything, is he, Russell T Davies?
Yeah, it's true.
And we have another one. Now, this really did come out of left field for me, because I've never heard of this guy before. But it turns out I have heard him and seen him. What do you know of this guy, Jonathan Groff?
Jonathan Groff. Okay, so this is one of those things where he's one of those guys where you recognize him, but you haven't really. Bear with me. I'm bringing up his IMDb as we speak here, because he's got an interesting one. So
I believe he started out on the show Glee, and I'm not entirely sure when that started, probably around 13, 14 years ago, and it ran for years and years, and the cast fluctuated on that, didn't it? But it would seem that he played a character called Jesse on that, and that was his breakout role.
Yeah, he's done some stuff here in the States. He did 19 episodes of the original Netflix series Mindhunters.
That was the David Fincher show, wasn't it?
Yeah. For all of the kids out there, he's the voice of Kristoff in Frozen. So he played Smith in The Matrix Resurrections. And his most recent big role, he was in the latest M. Night Shyamalan film, Knock at the Cabin, where he was one of the 4 leads in that film. But he's another young and up and coming actor in this case. And I think, again, this is one of those things to where he's tapping a little bit of the Disney Rolodex, but he's also tapping people who aren't necessarily superstars either. And I think that's the right way to go here. And I'm excited to see what role he's coming in as and what they're going to do with him.
Obviously, I couldn't have picked this guy out of a crowd. I'd never heard of the name. I'm quite a fan of Frozen. I think it's a lovely film. And he was great in that. Kristoff, wasn't it, the character that he voiced? Like all of the voice artists in that movie, it's really idiosyncratic and a memorable character. But generally speaking, the rest of the stuff, those shows, Mindhunter, for example, has been on my list for a really, really long time. Not seen any of them. But Jonathan has also got a huge Broadway career behind him as well, hasn't he? It says here he's dazzled audiences with his performance as King George III in Hamilton. Now, I've only ever seen excerpts from Hamilton. To me, it seemed absolutely nauseating, but millions, if not billions, seem to disagree.
It's one of the most beloved Broadway shows of all time. I mean, put Lin-Manuel Miranda on the map. Let's be honest. Whether it's your cup of tea or not, that's exactly one thing. But you cannot deny the phenomenon that is Hamilton.
Yeah, it's some musicals I do like. It just isn't my cup of tea. But this man, there does seem to be a lot of excitement surrounding him. And again, I don't think it can be a bad thing that people of this caliber, with this amount of versatility, are going to be part of Doctor Who. We've got a quote here from Jonathan who said, "I am so thrilled to jump into the extraordinary mind of Russell T Davies." God, there's some of the stuff they come out with. Do you think this gets written for them? "I'm so thrilled to jump into the extraordinary mind of Russell T Davies and watch the incredible Ncuti Gatwa soar in this iconic role." Yeah, it is all back to, just like you said, all back to Ncuti again. They keep talking up Ncuti.
Yeah, and I think that again, that's the key right there. Is
being excited
Ncuti.
about the man in the dead center.
I think there's a lot of respect for Ncuti and what he's doing and where he's coming from, and I think a lot of people are. And believe it or not, I mean, I look at some of his other upcoming projects too. He's going to be in the new Barbie movie that's coming out, which is actually, as crazy as it sounds, is getting a lot of buzz here in the United States. Because
I think that film looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and he's going to have a role in that as well. So I'm really interested to see what's going on with that film. But I think you're going to see Ncuti Gatwa become a superstar before it's all said and done.
You could be right. We've got a picture of Ncuti with Jonathan Groff here, and they were on location, believe it or not, filming Doctor Who. This was within a few days of it all being announced, and he's in character as a key role. They keep saying key roles about everybody that they cast in this, but he's been given a key role, a mysterious key role, alongside Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson when Doctor Who returns to its next full season. Russell T Davies said, "This is an incredible coup and a great honour to get such a huge star striding onto our set. Strap on your space boots. This is going to be a blast." Again, we have no character here. We don't know who he's playing. They were very open about Indira playing the Duchess, but they're keeping Jonathan's role under wraps. Obviously, Ncuti and Millie, there was the Doctor, and Ruby, they're in period dress. So we've got a fair idea. This was in the Regency period, around that time in history. Do you want to take a stab at who you think Jonathan could be playing, Carl?
No, honestly, not real sure at this point because I don't know what to expect. What do you got for me?
Well, I'm pretty convinced that he's playing Beethoven.
It could very well be.
Given the period, given the track record of the Russell T Davies era in particular, for looking at historical figures, having fun with them, the Doctor meeting them, interacting with them, running around with them, and need I say, sexing them up a little, because Beethoven, I'm sure he's got a face his mother probably loved, but I think they've probably sexed him up in the same way that they did Shakespeare with Dean Lennox Kelly all the way back in series 3. Back in 2007, and he just has that. There's enough of Beethoven there, I think, with the wavy hair and the style of dress. I don't know. I think that I think it's a fairly good chance that he's playing Beethoven. There'll be 8 episodes in that series of Doctor Who, Kyle, and obviously the past, the present, and the future. That's the blend, isn't it? So there's going to be, I would think, a couple of historicals, and to not feature historical figures, well, that wouldn't be very Russell T Davies, would it?
I agree with you. I think Ncuti, the first season of Ncuti's run is going to be very much more time traveling in the past than it will be into the future.
And it's another style for the 15th Doctor. He does seem to look at home in practically anything. Like I said, a bit of a clothes horse who has fun with clothes. Maybe he plays dress up. I don't know. We've seen the Doctor do that. We saw the 4th Doctor very fleetingly do that. And Millie Gibson looking absolutely stunning there as Ruby Sunday. What a beautiful young woman. How exciting it is to have 2 brand new talents, or certainly new to me, leading this show. I can't wait to see where it's going to go, Kyle, and what the future holds in store. We're going to cover some more ground here and make some more predictions throughout the rest of the show. But before we get into that, it falls to me to remind you that if you'd like to do some real-time traveling of your own, each and every edition of this show, past, present, and future, is just a tap or 2 away on the device of your choice if you know where to look. A proper time stream of reviews, previews, interviews, geek outs, and deep dives with all our regular panelists and some pretty awesome guests. In fact, we know there's something for every fan over at type40.podbean.com. More about that a little later on. Can
I point out something real quick? Your episode Nowhere to Ride, the Planet of the Dead review.
Yeah.
Are you in the same camp as me that I would love to see Michelle Ryan's character come back in other episodes of Doctor Who?
Well, you have to go and listen to the episode and find out what I had to say about that, because
I know, but I'm just I mean, I'm a fan, so yeah. I know why. I know why it probably didn't happen, because she decided to come over to the States and probably didn't make some of the best choices in roles. But
she made a bionic leap at one point, didn't she, Michelle?
Yeah, she made a very big bionic mistake.
Bless her heart. As always, we'll be making contact with that matrix of all knowledge that we call the Fandom Podcast Network for a word about all the other cult conversations going on across all the other shows over there. Some big deals, some big noise being made by the brand of Doctor Who coming up now as we get deep into more geeky talk with Kyle and catch up on what he's heard and what his thoughts are about everything else that's coming with our favourite show. So yeah, where are we going next?
Wow. And I'm pulling. I was pushing this whole time. That's the problem. But I actually have a question for you, Mr. Hadley, as we're talking about casting, because there was a piece of casting. You had a little freeze up there. Maybe I'm getting blocked off before I get my thoughts off. But no, there is a piece of casting that you didn't bring up when we were talking about casting there that happened that we haven't had a chance to talk about, and I know it's been a controversial piece of casting.
Okay, you want to go there, do you? I
want to go there because I there's some things I need. I've been wanting to say about some of the things I'm seeing with this, and some of the things that I do have a concern about something that is happening with the upcoming 15th Doctor run.
Okay, well, I'll lead it in because I think it's pretty obvious where you're going, and I'm glad you've asked about this, because over here in Britain, the name Jinkx Monsoon meant absolutely nothing. The RuPaul's Drag Race show is quite a small show on a minority interest channel. The day that Jinkx Monsoon was announced as joining the cast of Doctor Who for Series 14, again in a key role, according to the official social medias, the sort of Twitter sphere, the social media sphere, all of that pretty much went into meltdown. The official tweet that they put out from the BBC's own account, that got almost as much engagement as the 60th anniversary trailer had itself, and that video of Jodie Whittaker they put out with her sort of regeneration twist back in 2017 at Wimbledon, the whole gender swap reveal thing. So I suppose the biggest question I have for you is, who is Jinkx Monsoon? Russell T Davies is a huge fan of this person. Is she really that big a deal?
For me, no. I mean, but the RuPaul show is a phenomenon here in the United States.
It is.
I'm not even gonna lie about it. It's reality television, which is still just huge here in the U.S. Obviously, there's a lot going on in our country right now that this is a very big topic as far as not just character, but what this person, what people feel that this person represents. And I've heard the controversies about this, Dan, and there's something I've seen the chats and I know how some of the other panelists are feeling right now. And I know that I have read articles, at least here in the US, Dan, and I don't know if they've been prevalent in the UK or not, but because of the sexuality of several actors that have been cast in this new run of Who, Jinkx Monsoon, Jonathan Groff is gay.
Yes.
There's been a lot of questions about Shooty's sexuality. Obviously, also we have a new Rose, who I believe, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is also a transgender person as well. I do not know how they choose to identify, so I'm going to be a little respectful about that. But
of course,
here's my feeling on this. We are in a world that has changed so drastically from the last rebirth of Doctor Who, and I think whether you're a fan of it or not, this is an aspect of our world today. I am going, and I'll be honest, there's things about particular lifestyle choices that I don't understand. I don't feel I'm correct to speak on because I don't make those. Those are not my lifestyle choices. But I also am a firm believer in that as long as you're not forcing your lifestyle onto other people, or you're not doing something that is inappropriate.
Compelling their speech, for example, demanding their behavior and responses, demonizing them for asking simple questions.
Yeah, I think I don't have a problem with what you choose in life.
Me neither. Well said.
Here's one of the things that I am a little concerned about, and I think it's coming from many different sides. People are seeing these castings and trying to judge everything off these castings about the actor's sexuality. Can we see how they are and how they portray the characters before we make judgments of what they're going to be about? I think I don't, whether you approve of what they represent or not, that's one thing. That's personal opinion. But give them the chance, because we don't know what they're capable. Some of these actors, we don't know what they're capable of. Let's see what Russell T Davies writes for these characters. Let's see if he's going to use some of their aspects and try to nail us over the head with a hammer. I don't think he's going to. Now, they might not be great characters. Maybe we don't like them, but I'm seeing it from one side where they're concerned that, it's going to become too much of an LGBTQ show. And then I've seen articles from the other side where it feels like the LGBTQ, because of the sexuality of the actors who are being cast, they're trying to claim it as their own thing now. And it's Doctor Who, and it's for everybody. The aspects of sexuality, the aspects of race, those are things that have never really been a big part of Doctor Who. And it felt like, Captain Jack Harkness is one of the most beloved characters in Doctor Who history. He's omnisexual. Come on, man. But they had fun with it. They didn't make it a big deal. So
Jack was a very, very well-conceived character.
Yeah.
Beautifully cast by with an actor who may not be possessed of the greatest range in the world, but with masses of charisma, a real lust for the Doctor Who universe, and I suppose a panache really about him. John Barrowman is incredibly charismatic. He was then, he is now, just full of personality and enthusiasm for whatever project he's working on. And that, again, just like casting the Doctor, we spoke about that earlier on, Jack is a similar kind of character. It had to be exactly the right kind of personality to fill that role. I understand that Jinkx Monsoon is playing a villain. We know that much. I think what people are concerned about, and a slight distinction, we spoke earlier on about Indira Varma, and we heard Russell, there was hyperbole in his quote about her, and with Jonathan as well. But in those two instances,
they've proven
they're very, very proven. I think they belong. And I know nothing of Jonathan Groff, to be fair, but you can see through his track record, through his versatility, they both seem like people who kind of belong in Doctor Who, and it's fine. It just feels right. In the case of Jinkx Monsoon, the whole thing has an aroma about it of not just somebody casting them because they admire them, like Russell clearly admires Indira and had a great working relationship with her in the past, mutually respectful relationship, and he's probably followed a career ever since. That's one thing. But this seems bordering on cronyism. And obviously, Jinkx Monsoon is a big star. Obviously, I'm not stupid. I can see that through talking to other people. Jinkx Monsoon is a big star internationally, a far bigger name than Indira Varma. I'm not sure how it would compare with Jonathan Groff. You probably would answer that far better than I would. But Russell T Davies is a personal friend of Jinkx Monsoon's husband. They have this long-standing relationship of 3 or 4 years. Russell spoke at their wedding, and it would seem to me that this could be an instant where Russell, as he's maybe got a little bit older, that he might not be as sharp as he was. And this could be an error of judgment in the same way that Chris Chibnall insisting on casting Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. That was a massive miscast, again, based on the fact that he liked her so much personally and he enjoyed working with her and they were friends socially. And I think that's why this rankles people. as well as the whole culture war situation, the interminable culture war that is dying a natural death, but that people keep insisting on kicking back into life, and the gender politics agenda that constantly is being sort of drizzled over all entertainment, and in particular the kind of things that the geeks gravitate towards, real sort of pop culture, sci-fi, fantasy franchises. So people, I agree with you that some reactions have been reactionary. I think some reactions have been somewhat harsh, and people have been quick to anger over this. And initially I thought very much as you did, and largely speaking, ethically I still do. But Jinkx Monsoon has not helped themselves by how can I put this? By making very charged political statements, sweeping statements on social media, not just before, because I disagree with trawling through people's social media for stuff they said 6 years ago, but Jinkx has continued to do so since being cast in this role, since being out on the streets, being seen filming Doctor Who, a family show. And whilst I know that they are their own brand, Kyle, and they could be only in this show for an episode or two, I think people, Doctor Who fans, who see that, this person saying those things, behaving very, very oddly in some behind-the-scenes videos, I can see both sides to this. And whilst I do have a certain amount of faith in this person, they're obviously very talented. I've heard their podcast. I've heard them sing. Spectacular. But their conduct, as a person, I can see why people have concerns about it that come next Easter, whenever this episode appears and they're part of it, that the very last thing people are talking about could end up being the 45, 50 minutes worth of Doctor Who that are screened. And it'll be all about the latest contentious, incendiary thing that Jinkx Monsoon has said. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you're saying. And when I first saw this casting, because it came out while I was in my very busy time, but I did see some of the things that you had chatted about with your fellow panelists and companions here on Type 40, and just hearing the different reactions. And this came across as me when I looked at it at two sides. There's two sides to this coin. On one hand, the reactionary is, I think, because of the world we live in today, to see this as a stunt casting. And are they only casting this person because of who they are, and not based off of did they earn it?
I think Kyle, if I may just interrupt, sorry mate, with a distinction. I think in this instance, I think you can cast people because of who they are, because of a bankability. I think the Doctor Who fans are concerned that in this instance, Jinkx Monsoon has been cast for what they are, for how they identify.
She is being cast as based off of her sexuality, not by her ability. I think that's the reactionary thing, because of how things have been the last few years and how people have. It has felt like there have been writing choices and casting choices that have felt forced, and like they're trying, and
it's very precarious.
And I think it's unfair. I mean, but I also think it's this is dealing with a product of how our world has been. For me, I will reserve my judgment until I see this character on my screen and see how this character is portrayed. And if I don't like the character, I'm going to speak out. It's not because I have anything against the actor. It's because I don't like the character. And maybe I can think of somebody else who could play that role better. Yeah. But what I'm going to say right now is that I'm encouraging all Doctor Who fans, and I know in the climate we're in right now, it's not easy. Don't judge it till you've watched it. That's a big thing. And yes, I'm gonna speak. I'm a straight white male, which, you know, a lot of people say that means
it's not a crime,
I don't have the authority to spit. I don't have the authority.
You can talk about whatever you like.
Yeah. I know, but no, I'm just trying to make a point here. That there's a lot of people. Oh, you don't have you've had your time. You know, I'm going to say this. There is no community that has the right to claim Doctor Who as its own. Doctor Who is for everybody, and that's the way it's always been. That is the way the Doctor has been. No matter whether the Doctor was a straight white male, whether the Doctor was female, whether the Doctor shows up as gay or bisexual or
Yeah.
omnisexual or whatever. That's not what the Doctor is about. The Doctor has always been about being advanced, and there's a sense of inclusion. But we don't need to have it be, like I said, going back to what Chris Chibnall did, hammer it over our heads. You write the character, let the character be how the character is going to be, and play it out. And if we're lucky, we're going to get something very special because we've got amazing, talented people who can separate their personal beliefs from what their acting and their job is.
The belief is that Jinkx Monsoon will be playing a villain in an episode that's going to revolve around music. Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson were seen filming with Jinkx Monsoon on the streets of, I think it was Cardiff, that one. They've been all over the place filming. I can barely keep track of them. But it was parts of Cardiff that were dressed to look like Liverpool and various locations associated with the Beatles. So Penny Lane and outside the Apple headquarters, with the zebra crossing, all those things. And Ncuti was there with his afro in a very sharp, very, very fitted 60s suit. It looks enormous fun. And of course, Jinkx Monsoon is wearing a costume which is decorated with piano keys there. So it would seem that this is going to revolve around music. Personally, Kyle, I'm hoping against probably all hope that it's not a musical episode. I can't think of anything worse. Part of me thinks perhaps they should get it out of their system. But for a time, I thought that about the female Doctor. And where did that lead us? What do you think the odds of us getting a musical episode of Doctor Who are?
I think, considering the talent that's involved in Doctor Who right now, it wouldn't shock me. But you brought up a point, and it's kind of been in the back of my head since you brought up the point when we were talking earlier about how Ncuti's looks and his costumes keep changing.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about, I was going back to one of the original trailers where you see Ncuti say the line, "Who the hell am I?" Or what? I'm paraphrasing, but
what the hell is going? He says, "What the hell is going on here?" What the hell is going on?
Maybe that's kind of the point of the 15th Doctor, is because maybe it's the fact that he's revisited an old face in Tenet with the 14th Doctor. Maybe it's the 15th Doctor doesn't quite understand who he is, and maybe that's part of the season, is the 15th Doctor figuring out who he is.
There are so many possibilities. I've got a quote here from Jinkx Monsoon. I don't know if you've seen this. There's been several quotes. This is the least inflammatory. "I'm honoured, thrilled, and utterly excited to join Doctor Who. Russell T Davies is a visionary and a brilliant writer." I agree with that entirely. "I can't wait to get into the weeds with him and the crew. I hope there's room in the TARDIS for my luggage." And a growl there, no doubt, from Jinkx Monsoon. Yeah, they are personal friends. Russell T Davies is a visionary, and I'm very, very excited about all of this. And I'm thinking back, I'm flashing back, Kyle, to how I felt in 2004 watching New Doctor Who come together. I think, well, did anything give me cause for concern then? Because obviously there was no social media then. I won't say there were no opinions. There were, if you knew where to find them. But generally speaking, they were huddled away in corners on message boards and forums and things such as that. They weren't talked about in the mainstream press at all. And more to the point, you had to go and make a conscious effort to spend time there through a desktop PC rather than bang out a shocked reply to something that has just been tweeted out from an official account on your own smartphone in your own hand whilst you're waiting at the cash point or something like that. The world was slower paced, wasn't it? And I think people had time to think in between announcements and in getting together with other fans to process something and get to perhaps if not a happy medium, then a place where they could perhaps consider their concerns and be fair-minded.
Well, we were. I think even just you go back to 2004 when they're building this and when Who came back. I think as a society we had more patience in things to let things develop and grow before we assess the final judgment on that. And I think as a society now, we give something 5 minutes, and if it doesn't meet our fancy, we're on to the next thing.
You're probably right.
And
there's a lot of truth in that too.
And I think that's one of the challenges I think any new creative process has, is that I think there is so much pressure on these things to, if they don't hit a home run out of the ballpark within the first episode, people are going to jump ship because there's so many different options. Except, and here's where things get real interesting right now, there might not be that many options by the time the new season of Doctor Who starts, because the writer's strike in the US doesn't look like it's going to be ending anytime soon.
It looks like it's going to be something that's prolonged rather than it'll be over in 2 or 3 weeks after people have finished stamping their feet.
I have talked to some people I know who are within the industry, and they've all been told to be ready for the long haul.
The last writer's strike was around 2008, wasn't it? Because that was what interrupted shows like Heroes Season 2. It completely took
I will never forgive the writer's strike for destroying what was an amazing show.
It was.
I'm sorry, the writer's strike destroyed Heroes. The first season of Heroes is still some of the best TV in science fiction I've ever seen.
Do you think that we still don't know, for all these casting announcements that we've been speaking about here, we only know the identity of one writer on the new series. It's an 8-episode series. Like, they can't all be written by Russell T Davies, but they're not letting us know who the talent is, what those names are. But do you think that Doctor Who could be safe because all of those scripts for that series are either all by one bloke, or because they were written long ago, or locked in, and they're out there already filming them?
Let me put it this way: I feel like at least this first season of Ncuti's run is something Russell T Davies has probably had locked away in a box for a good while, and then it was fleshing it out. I have a feeling we're going to see his name on the writing credits of several episodes in the first season back, for a few reasons. I think we'll see some people who have probably worked with Russell T Davies in the past that he has some trust in, but I think Russell T Davies understands how important it is to not have a huge writer's room for Doctor Who right now. I think he knows
3 or 4 carefully chosen names working closely with him
to maintain a feel throughout the episodes of the first season of Doctor Who. And come on, let's be honest, that's one of the knocks on the Chibnall run. He had so many different writers that from episode to episode, the show varied greatly in the feel of it.
I think you're being very, very kind. Most of it was a pile of stinking S. I think it was a case of how could the show possibly continue to get so much worse week on week on week on week? And I know we're breaking over old ground a little bit. It was astonishing how he managed to find non-talent after non-talent after non-talent and do absolutely nothing, it would seem, to work with them to at least polish the average turd.
Can I just throw in something? I think he had talented people, and I've said this before on the show. I think Chris Chibnall did not allow his talent to do what they did best. I think Chris Chibnall micromanaged the living hell out of his run.
Well, he's been quoted as saying that most of the scripts, a big chunk of those scripts, the versions that reached the screen that were put into actors' hands to work with on day of filming, most of them were next to first drafts, whereas it's commonplace for, as you know, for scripts on high-end international hit shows that they're only making, by that point, 10 of every 18 months. You would think that giving them a second pass, third pass, or even a fourth pass wouldn't be too much to ask, particularly when you're making a concerted effort to work with brand new writers. But Chris Chibnall didn't view that as a priority. And I think Russell T Davies, we know that he knows better because he's been speaking about how he is a mentor himself to lots of new writers. It was very encouraging to read that. And although he hasn't spoken publicly about the work of anybody else on the show in the previous era, I think that silence can also sometimes say a lot. He hasn't been silent on the subject of Jinkx Monsoon, as you can imagine. We've got one more quote from Russell T Davies here. He said, "In a galaxy of comets and supernovas," always goes big, doesn't he? "In a galaxy of comets and supernovas, here comes the biggest star of them all. Jinkx Monsoon is on a collision course with the TARDIS, and Doctor Who will never be the same again." think that's what a lot of fans are worried about, that that this could set a precedent of employing people who potentially could be a liability, who could be all about what they are and how they identify, and or rather than being in a role that suits them and is the best fit for the show and for their own unique talents. Now, I think nobody's saying that Jinkx Monsoon isn't good at what they do. Nobody particularly. I don't think anybody wishes her any ill. They just don't want people who are going to be an embarrassment and a liability anywhere near this show, because everything is so precarious at the moment. But according to Russell, we're supernovas. It's all supernovas and comments and superstars.
So I'm taking that quote a little differently.
Okay.
So I am taking that quote as, and I think this is something that, as a Doctor Who fan, Dan, you can appreciate. Almost every season of Doctor Who, you always have that one character whose personality just is bigger than the room.
Yes, I suppose you're right.
Whether it's Captain Jack, or maybe in some cases River Song, where they when they're on the screen, their personality dominates the screen, and sometimes it works. River Song, Captain Jack. Sometimes it doesn't. Say what you will about the Missy character from the Capaldi run. I thought she was great, even though I know a lot of people said she was great. I just wish she wasn't the Master. But I do think she's shown in that as well. I think Sacha Darwin shown in that, with that over-the-top personality he had in the Master, in the Jodie run, one of the few bright spots out of the Jodie run, or even John Sim as the Master in the Tennant run. I think what he's talking about is that bringing in that person and that character who has that big personality in the room. And I think when you're playing off of somebody with the type of energy that I think Ncuti is going to bring, that could set up for some very interesting and fun times in Doctor Who. And that's what I'm hoping. That is just how I'm taking it, and that's probably my own internal hope of how he's meaning that to come across.
What you're suggesting is that we all perhaps calm down just a little, at least for now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's focus on this guy, because this is what I'm getting excited about right now.
Well, hold your excitement for a couple of minutes at least, because we've got a big star to check in with for just the next couple of minutes, and it's our mate Kev. Of course it is. He's ready and loaded up with lots of other supernovas and comments and superstars, all with key roles in making the Fandom Podcast Network a glorious place to spend some time. That's where you'll find a galaxy full of other fantastic podcasts around all sorts of other of your favourite geek properties and franchises. Some of them aren't even fronted by Kyle Wagner. It really is astonishing. So here's Kev with his download of all of that. Kyle and I will be back in a couple of minutes with more talk, more of our big catch-up on all things Doctor Who.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blood of Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
Yes, we've teased and tantalized you, and we can even clothe you too. There's merch to match all of those shows, including Type 40. If you head over to tpublic.com, search for the Fandom Podcast Network, and that's where you'll find a store full of all the team colours for all of the podcasts on everything from T-shirts to phone cases and tapestries and all manner of other amazing items. Treat yourself, treat your other selves. It all goes to support the Fandom Podcast Network into the bargain too. So everybody wins. I'm back here with Kyle Wagner. I cut him off. He was at bated breath and excited and ready to tell us more about his feelings about all these recent developments in the Whoniverse. It's been coming to us thick and fast, and we've got two lead actors at the moment. Where do we start? Well, we've gone into Ncuti Gatwa, lots of the new castings and lots of the controversy, but we stopped it at a David Tennant, didn't we? At the 14th Doctor. As he is now. Have you got used to that yet, Kyle?
I think it's David Tennant. You just roll with that, and we're good to go. David Tennant could be every Doctor, and I don't think people would complain.
You're probably right. Happy to see him back.
Oh, it's ecstatic. I think we were at a point where he was. You can maybe have done Matt Smith, but I think he really was the only person to transition and get us get people feeling good about Doctor Who again. I think they did. I think it is the smartest decision they have made in this process, is bringing back one of the most beloved faces in Doctor Who history, even if it's only just a few special run as the Doctor. Again, to bring in David Tennant to restore some balance to the Whoverse. The Whoverse, as they'll say, and just to, I think, give everybody that warm blanket feeling of I'm in my safe place with Doctor Who. David Tennant is back.
The last thing you want to be worrying about at any time, really, watching this show, Carl, but particularly in something as monumental as an anniversary year, the last thing you want to be worrying about and wondering is the guy at the front of it all, leading the parade, are they capable of filling that role? And we know categorically that David Tennant is. Some people like him more than others, and his reappointment as the Doctor, as the current Doctor, hasn't pleased everybody. But I can't think of anybody better to lead it at the moment. At the age that he is now, this is a man who is never not working, and yet his association with this show, it hasn't dogged him the way that it perhaps has other people who'd played it in the past. He's always been just as enthusiastic about being associated with the character since he's played it as he was in talking about it before and supporting Doctor Who and being very much a fan. I think he's an extraordinary talent. I think he's very, very versatile. And he does seem to be an actor, Carl. You would think that after 17 years since he took the lead in Doctor Who, that perhaps if his star hadn't have sort of fallen a little, but certainly that you wouldn't see him in quite so many roles. But the reverse seems to be the case, doesn't it?
Well, because he's selective about his roles. You don't see David Tennant taking these superstar roles either. You really don't. I think maybe if I'm looking at the stuff he's done since Doctor Who, to me, the biggest franchise choice he did is when he played Kilgrave in Marvel's Jessica Jones. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, he takes good roles that fit his style. And while they might not be worldwide roles, they're no roles he gets acclaim for. And people respect him and people love him. And I find it so interesting that really the two people who were the youngest people, two youngest people ever selected to be the Doctor until Ncuti, have also had the best, being at peace with being done with the Doctor afterwards, but still embrace what it did for them and where they came from. And that's David Tennant and Matt Smith. We know Capaldi didn't necessarily leave on the terms he wanted thanks to the BBC. We know, of course, the crazy history with Eccleston, and we know the history of past Doctors. I think Tennant and Matt Smith are probably the two Doctors who left being better for being Doctor Who and being in a good place mentally and career-wise than they were before they started Doctor Who.
So if there's no baggage, no unfortunate associations, no trauma from being part of a series, why wouldn't you want to go back with it? It's not really a risk, is it? And I've been thinking about David Tennant a lot lately because I've just seen Inside Man is doing really well in the Netflix top 10. That's still in there. That premiered like 6, 7, maybe even 8 months. It's still there. He's got Good Omens 2 coming up very, very soon.
I can't wait for that because those two together are magic.
Several big shows, again, one after the other after the other. I was thinking, what is it about David Tennant? Because in truth, he probably isn't as versatile an actor as I had thought he was. I think he's a very, very clever actor. I think he's a great actor. But I don't think he's an actor who could play absolutely anything. And I think he knows that. And his representation, his agent, also knows that. And so he makes very, very wise choices. As you said, Kilgrave, exactly the right. They could have cast David Tennant as Reed Richards or something huge, leading some big team or headline. But even if they had, he probably wouldn't have taken it. I think he'd rather play roles like Kilgrave in Jessica Jones, the Purple Man, not only because he could probably have more fun with them, but because they are more in his wheelhouse, where there's riffs on things he's either done before on TV or things that he's very confident, characters that he's very confident that he can reach.
Yeah, I think he's very good at judging what the best roles are for him. But I also look at his career and the role he's taken, even though he may not show the greatest of ranges, as you said, he's taken enough roles where he's variationing himself enough from what he was in Broadchurch compared to what he was in Good Omens, compared to what he was in Jessica Jones, to some of these other shows. He knows, he's an actor who knows who he is within himself. And that allows him to pick and choose the roles that he knows fit him, and not him trying to take roles that might be beyond what his capabilities are. Plus, he's just genuinely respected and genuinely loved. I mean, I know there are people who are not necessarily, everybody has their favorite Doctor, but I think most of the people I've talked to, even they say, I'm not necessarily thrilled with the idea of Tennant coming back, but you know what? They've all say the same thing. It's probably the best thing for the show right now.
I don't know if this transmits of Atlantic, but certainly in terms of Great Britain, for the majority of people, for the largest percentage of the population, David Tennant is the Doctor. And David Tennant himself is, if not a national treasure, he's somebody that people enjoy seeing turn up in various things. He does a lot of performances as himself, fronting charity telethons and things like that. Which, that's not really my cup of tea. I couldn't spend an entire evening watching one of those things. But there he is, being associated with them. Always seems like he's having fun. Always good with the public, great with the fans. And generally speaking, I think, being quite a good role model, represents family values too. Obviously, a family man with several children. And so I think that's why the public respond to him so well, because you can relate to him. And you can look up to him, somebody who is just really, really good at what they do. That's still okay in 2023. That we reward endeavour and success. We admire success. We look to emulate it. I was speaking to somebody. We had a guest on Type 40 Live not that long ago, a podcaster who's also an aspiring actor. And he was saying, David Tennant's been my inspiration for most of my life. I thought, God, yeah, because he's like 27 years old, something like that. I thought, wow. And he's recently had a chance to say just that to David Tennant. So I can't wait when I catch up with him see what he's got to say about that experience. But I think all of that, being on television for the best part of 20 years, it's all wrapped up, one thing inside another, isn't it? And I don't know if you would call David Tennant a star in the way that there used to be stars, because we know a lot about his life in the way that we didn't about people then. But I think he does have an aura.
I think it's fair to call David Tennant a star. I think it's also fair now to call Matt Smith a star. I think
because the nature of stardom has changed too, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think at least here in the U.S., I would say it's probably even 50-50 split that it's either David Tennant or Matt Smith is the Doctor.
Yeah,
Tom Baker obviously has a piece in that too. I think Tom Baker in the U.S. is probably the most notable Doctor outside of Tennant and Smith. But you look at Matt Smith's kind of resurgence here in the U.S. with thanks to the new Game of Thrones House of Dragons show, but how his character is so different than what people were used to him from seeing him in the Doctor, and that shows you Matt.
He's fantastic in it.
I mean, he is absolutely fantastic in that. And it shows you how much he's grown, and I think I feel that way about Ncuti too. I feel like Ncuti is going to be one of those kind of actors who, when he leaves Who, it's probably going to be on a good term, and he's going to go on to bigger and better things.
There's a certain amount of frustration out there at the moment, Kyle, from some portions of the fandom with the 60th anniversary. We're now nearly halfway through the entire anniversary year, and people are a little frustrated that we haven't seen and heard a little more somehow. I mean, you've had castings and things like, we're hearing quite a lot about Series 14, but very, very little about what's to come in less than 6 months' time now. Obviously, we want as many surprises as possible, don't we, come November? But on the other hand, as regards the celebration of an entire year and a whole legacy, there doesn't seem to be a great deal. And the first trailer that we had for the anniversary specials that are coming in November, we got that on Christmas Day, an entire minute's worth of content. And then there's been nothing for several months until very, very recently. We got another trailer, but it did come at a cost. What does the word Eurovision mean to you, Kyle, as an American man?
Believe it or not, I'm more familiar with Eurovision thanks to Will Ferrell now than I was a few years ago. But
that was a fun film. I forgot about that.
I think that was a film that I think really got Eurovision as something that is a little bit more known now in the U.S. culture. But I know it is a very big deal over there, and it's a big event. Yeah. And I know that they put out the new trailer for Doctor Who during Eurovision.
They did.
I've seen it. I've seen the little snippets that they did leading up to it, and it didn't reveal much, but I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I called them tingle teasers, and they were dropping them into the schedules for 2 weeks before Eurovision.
Did we not get the names though? Did we not get the name? Am I remembering right?
We did. I mean, we didn't get a great deal in the Eurovision, what we're calling the Eurovision teaser, because it wasn't really a trailer. There was still no narrative component to it. It was still a smattering of images. But we did get a bit of admin, and we got the names, the episode titles. Do you want to have a quick look? Do you want to refresh your memory?
Yes, please refresh my memory.
I'm so glad that you said that. Let's take a look at it here. This is what we got, wasn't it? There, so we got a slow-moving Doctor closing in on Camden Town there, and Cyberdog. Yep. That's a cafeteria in Camden Town. We get Donna, so we got to see Donna. Nice to see Catherine Tate back as this character.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when this is done.
Got a streaking spacecraft across a golden sky on fire as well. The special effects look a few levels up, don't they?
You're starting to see some of the Disney budget pop in. We also saw a glimpse of our new companion, as well as a new alien. That looks like a new race to me.
It is a new race, but it's kind of an old race too. And the first special we get the title is the Star Beast, and I suppose that's the clue really for some older fans will know all about that. Killer line from Donna there as always. Lots of this teaser though are frustratingly being redacted, particularly about the middle chunk. So the second special, Wild Blue Yonder, they won't show us anything. They won't let us hear any dialogue from that, which could point to that one being the one that features the most surprises, Kyle.
That's what I'm thinking. And then here we, of course, Neil Patrick Harris in his role.
Loving life, seemingly playing the celestial toy maker in these scenes that were filmed in Bristol around a year ago now as we speak. And we think this could be some sort of unit HQ there with the 14th Doctor giving, he's reading the riot act, I think, and trying to rally the troops against the giggle, against the forces of darkness. And it has to be the celestial toy maker that Neil Patrick Harris is playing. Hopefully a memorable villain. I'm a big fan of Neil Patrick Harris. I think he's a great talent.
Yeah, no, I saw this, and that is some amazing effect right there.
It's incredible, isn't it? That is Beep the Meep, Kyle. Yeah. We'll come back to that in a moment. But that Donna line as well, what the hell? Textbook Donna Noble, isn't it? It's like, there she is. That's the same character. This is the show that I loved back in 2008. And the gleaming, glittering logo there. So you notice the special effects there on the creature.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a little Disney. I think there's some Disney help going on there.
Because I believe that's a mixture of prosthetics, of real special effects, creature shop, Jim Henson creature shop style stuff, augmented by CGI. And that character, Beep the Meep, as well as the villains you saw there, the guards that were marching their way down that Cardiff street, those are the Wraith Warriors, and they're from a Doctor Who comic strip from 1980, originally illustrated by Dave Gibbons. So this is an adaptation of that comic strip, it would seem, called The Star Beast. So we're going to get a fairly accurate adaptation of a much-loved comic from all those decades ago.
Yeah, the amazing Dave Gibbons. Let's get that right.
Still an icon, still one of the best in his field. So are you aware of Doctor Who comics? Have you ever read many of them?
I've not read many of them, but I am aware that there was a run of Doctor Who comics. I think Marvel reprinted some of them in the 80s here in the US.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I got the reprint title. I bought the originals and the reprints. Well, I think I've bought those comics about 5 times. But the trailer there, the teaser, I should say, there's a lot of nice imagery in there, isn't it? I think the production has stepped up several steps. I think you can tell that there's more, not just more money in this, but more TLC, I think is what I'm saying, grading and things like that.
And I like the fact that in this trailer we do see the Doctor, we see the new companion Rose.
Yeah, I mean Rose. I have to pull you up on that, because if I don't, people listening and watching and commenting will. This character Rose is not a companion; she's just part of the supporting cast. But several mainstream outlets are reporting the character as a companion falsely, which is angering a lot of people.
Okay, well, then that's just correct. But I know this character is going to play at least an integral part in things.
Yeah.
So, and of course, then we see Catherine Tate as Donna Noble. We see it has a feel of improvement on it. It's a feel of it is a special, so they've had more money to put into it. I actually am very interested in the redacted things, because I think that's a great way to tease people to say, okay, what are they not telling us? And I think it has a lot to do with Donna Noble and what's going on. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I know a lot of people, we've talked about, there's some people who are not thrilled Tennant is coming back. But I think they're addressing the one story that was left over from the Tennant run that people always felt like there was more story to tell, and that was Donna's story. People weren't exactly thrilled with how Donna was left at the end of the Tennant run.
You think? I mean, I know it's affected people on a deep emotional level, and it was tragic. And if Donna was your favourite character, how could they do that to her? But I think with the passage of time, a lot of people did seem to feel that, although it wasn't the end we wanted for her, that it was quite clean, and that it had a lot of resonance because they'd left it there. So a lot of people are quite, a lot of people that I speak to are a little nervous about Russell opening it all up again. I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them, Kyle. Yeah. I don't agree.
I think I can understand and respect that. I just think that this is, of all, if they're going to bring back somebody to tie in from the 10th Doctor to the 14th Doctor, Donna Noble makes the most sense. I think bringing back a Martha Jones isn't really idyllic. You could bring back Captain Jack. I think a lot of people would love to see Tennant and Barrowman back, but obviously, it's it's hard to the Berriman situation as a whole act of stupidity mess that's been going on, and unfortunately, I think it affected what could have been. So I think Catherine Tate makes the most sense, and there's a story to tell there. Whether people feel wrapped up clean or not, there's still a little bit of a story to tell there, and so I'm excited for these 3 specials. I can't wait to get official dates on these.
Yeah.
We don't really have official dates on these, but
we don't have any dates. We know the episodes are going to last an hour each.
Yeah. So I'm excited about it, obviously, too. And I know you've been wanting to get into this aspect of it too, Dan, is that for the first time ever in the US, there's only one place to go to watch Doctor Who.
Yeah. It has an international streaming home, I suppose is what you call it, for the first time. Again, a decision that hasn't gone down universally well, particularly if you speak to people in Australia and New Zealand. It's the home of Doctor Who in Australia has always been on ABC since the late 60s, and they are smarting a little from the pain of having to potentially take out a subscription to Disney Plus because they didn't have it before. But generally speaking, I'd say most of the rest of the world are probably going to find it a relief that they know where to find this show, Kyle.
So here's the thing. I know we've talked about this off mic, but I mean, BBC America is basically a walking shit show right now.
Yeah, you've told me.
I don't think it'll be existing within a couple more years, especially with Doctor Who.
Such a shame.
New episodes of Doctor Who existing on Disney Plus now. However, whether you like Disney or you don't like Disney, Doctor Who being on such a widespread worldwide platform is the best thing, one of the best things that could happen to Doctor Who. If you really want to see Doctor Who succeed. Because let's be honest, when Doctor Who was at its biggest, it was not only succeeding in the UK, it was huge here in the US with David Tennant and Matt Smith and Karen Gillan and Billy Piper and just all of those. It needs to get back to that place again because the world has changed and the world is so connected now, and with streaming the way it is now, this is the biggest platform Disney Plus is almost the biggest platform internationally you can get on. And to have that Disney name behind you, whether you agree with some of the things that Disney's doing right now or not, it's a boon. And I think for Doctor Who, there is nobody better to market Doctor Who internationally. And even though we have not seen a lot of marketing of Doctor Who as of yet, it is coming. But I think Disney is also very strategic in how they market their things. And one thing Disney does not like to do is have their big products overlap each other. And if you look at the way Disney has moved some things around and changed productions, and obviously the writer's strike has a piece of that, but Disney has never had on Disney Plus a Marvel and Star Wars live action show overlap each other. They've always, maybe the final episode of a Marvel show airs the same time as a Star Wars show begins or vice versa. But there's always been nothing overlapping. And when you look at how the
do you believe that Doctor Who, you believe that Doctor Who could fold very nicely into that? We'll know how it's scheduled.
Yeah, I think there's several openings for Doctor Who to fill in towards the end of the year and into next year. And I really believe that once you get past some of Disney's bigger projects over the next few, I'll say, once we get past Ahsoka, Star Wars Ahsoka premiering on Disney Plus, and it having its run, the Doctor Who buzz on Disney Plus is really going to start getting very loud. Right now, Star Wars Ahsoka is scheduled to premiere on August 31st. You have Loki season 2 coming in October, and then they're dropping all of the show Echo all at once for the first time ever on a show on Disney Plus. In November. There's openings there in December because for a lot of hype, and I think you're going to start seeing it being placed there because Disney's very strategic in how they place their shows, so there's not one taking away from the other.
A lot of fans are worried that they'll treat it just as content, and that there won't be any emotional sort of investment from them in it, because it goes cold hard business people. But I suppose we won't really know how much they value this duel until the time comes.
I truly believe that they wouldn't have made the deal if they didn't value it. Disney doesn't just buy things to have content. There's reasons. Disney always has a reason. And in this case, come on. Doctor Who is something that I think, when we've talked about this, Dan, I think there's been for years a push to somebody, not the BBC, to have a bigger stake in the future of Doctor Who. And I think this distribution deal on Disney Plus is just going to be a huge boon. And I'll be honest with you, I could easily see within a 5 to 10 year window where Disney Plus owns Doctor Who, or Disney owns Doctor Who.
See, I'm quite comfortable with a lot of what you've just said until you said that last bit. So I'm like, whoa, no. I don't know. I think that it's going to be with Bad Wolf Studios for quite a long time.
Oh yeah, I think it'll be Bad Wolf. But what I'm thinking is that Disney, at some point, will probably be the controlling factor of Doctor Who, because I see what's happening in the marketplace. I see what's happening. The problem, from what I can tell, Dan, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the BBC is not in a real great place these days.
No, they're not. They're not at all. And there's still making errors of judgment on a weekly basis. I mean, I won't kid myself in thinking there isn't a crossover of interest between Doctor Who and the Eurovision Song Contest. There undoubtedly is. People who have a camp sensibility latch on to Doctor Who. I know several of them. I speak to a lot of them. A lot of them are really good mates of mine, and they love Doctor Who for that side to it. And it's the same with the Eurovision Song Contest. And I think that's why they tagged that trailer at the start of the song contest, something that is viewed by tens of millions of people, probably hundreds of millions of people, not just throughout Europe now, but all over the world. I think, though, I would rather the show be associated with Disney Plus. I think that for all that we know, I mean, particularly at the moment, it seems to be failure after failure for Disney. This is bombing, that's bombing, this is closing down, and they've had a lot of bad press.
Okay, let me clarify some things here. The difference of a bomb for Disney compared to what a bomb actually is a whole different classification. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Context is everything.
Guardians of the Galaxy is not a bomb. Guardians of the Galaxy is on pace to make big money. Looks like, but
they have had several tentpole films just this calendar year, which have, for all intents, I mean, they've certainly, I think, underperformed is being polite. If bomb is being too harsh, then underperformed is probably being too polite.
I think the problem is this, at least here in the States too, is that we have not adjusted to going back to the theaters completely yet after COVID and after the pandemic and in the lockdowns. And I think there are still a lot. I think the problem is you have a lot of people who during that time frame have gone into more of a streaming mentality and waiting for it to come on streaming on Disney Plus and going to the theater.
They seem to go back to cinemas when it matters enough.
Well, right. But we were at a point before the pandemic where if it was a new movie, you were going to the cinemas to watch it. Now people are being more selective, and it's a reflection of, I think, still adjusting from COVID, the economy right now. Going to the theater is not a cheap experience in the United States.
It isn't here either.
So I think that's a reflection of it. And I think too that there's some, Disney's been in a state of flux. Bob Iger is back in charge. Bob Chapek is out. They're trying to assort some things. The parks are doing great business. Whether you agree with what things are happening at the parks, that's another thing. But the parks are doing really good business since they've opened up more since the pandemic.
They have just closed the Star Wars park.
Well, yeah, but that was I think if you were to ask a lot of people how they managed that, was not not well managed in the first place. And you're talking about an experience that cost people $5,000 for 2 nights.
$5,000.
Yeah. So there's that. I'm going to let people in on a little secret about everybody who's making this big deal about how many subscribers Disney Plus lost in the last quarter, because it's a huge number. I think it's like close to
I haven't
billion.
seen.
But there's a reason for that, and it's a crazy reason, but there is a reason for that. Disney Plus in India had an exclusive contract to air cricket. And if you don't understand,
huge in India.
Cricket in India is like soccer, football around the world. When Disney lost that license and it went somewhere else, they lost all those people in India that subscribed strictly for the cricket. And that's why Disney Plus took this huge dive in numbers. I
admit I didn't know that.
So
I know cricket's huge. I've got family who are really, really into it. And yes.
So there's a little bit of a misnomer with that situation with Disney Plus. Now, I think it looks like Little Mermaid's going to be a huge hit. It looks like that's going to make a ton of money for Disney. So I think there's a moving around of it. I think it's just getting back into Disney Quest, and I think it's across the board here in the United States, at least. The distribution companies haven't quite found their footing yet, and they're still trying to figure some things out. And the writer strike isn't helping, because now it's like what we're seeing is, especially on the television side, a lot of programs now are getting moved to later in the year, so they have content for later in the year. So I think, but when you talk about Disney, people are very hyped for Ahsoka. People are very, very hyped for Secret Invasion, the Samuel Jackson Marvel miniseries.
That was a great trailer. But I'm looking at that, and then I see, you mentioned earlier on they were going to drop all of Echo all in one, and that looks like a character that's just it's never got over. It didn't really work in Hawkeye. It would seem that they're going to, are they testing out something, dropping it all in one day there, or are they just dropping it, hoping people won't notice?
I think it's a combo of one. One is it probably, I think that now that Iger's back, they're taking a little different approach, because I do believe that when Bob Chapek was in charge, he was just content, get it out. I don't care about the quality, just get it out. I want content out there for Disney Plus and things like that. And I think Iger and Kevin Feige and the people over at Lucasfilm are like, no, they're taking a reassessment, making sure they're putting out content, but it's quality content.
Let's hope. I mean, I'm never sure which Bob is which and which of them does what.
Trust me, you would much rather have Bob Iger than Bob Chapek. You're better off in that run. And I think with Bob Iger, you will see Doctor Who when the time comes for it. You will see a heavy marketing. I think right now there's other stuff that they're putting their focus on. And I know you were going to ask me in this episode too about Comic-Con. I do not expect to see a big Doctor Who presence at Comic-Con.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that in a couple of seconds.
But there is a Disney presence where you're going to see a huge Doctor Who presence. And in fact, I'm willing to bet that we see Ncuti at this, and that is D23, which is Disney's big annual convention.
So Disney Plus will be the exclusive home for new seasons of Doctor Who outside of the UK and Ireland. It'll premiere exclusively on the BBC within UK and Ireland, as it always has. Doctor Who returns in November 2023 with 3 special episodes starring David Tennant as the 14th Doctor, all to coincide with the 60th anniversary. The whens and the precise pattern of that, I suppose that'll be defined hopefully sooner rather than later. Ncuti Gatwa's first episode as the 15th Doctor, that's going to air over the festive period. Christmas, come on BBC, over Christmas, don't let us down, don't come at me with all that nonsense. So that's what we've got to look forward to in the not too distant future. Yeah, you You're right, Carl. That was my final thought, really, because I know that you're not just a pop culture pundit who talks about movies and TV shows and huge global events like Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con International. You talk about it every year and you go through all the panels and all the revelations there from all the major studios. But you're also somebody who's been to San Diego Comic-Con, haven't you? You know all about this. You have done the dance. This year's Comic-Con is on the 19th of July 2023. That's a Wednesday, so it'll run all the way until the following Sunday. So that's how many days? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of pop culture indulgence, of announcements, of panels, of revelations, and hopefully excitement, and the curtain coming down on some projects that will delight us in the years to come. Doctor Who hasn't been a major presence there for some time, it has to be said, and this year is an integral year for the brand. So yeah, that was going to be my question. Should Doctor Who be at Comic-Con 2023?
I think they should be. Now, whether they will be or not, that's a different conversation, because
why would they not be? Why would they choose to not be there, or are they simply not big enough? Spaces at a premium, there might not be room for them. What do you think?
It's a combination of things. Conventions here are still kind of getting back on their feet. One of the biggest conventions in the video game industry, E3, was canceled this year because they say it'll be back next year, but that used to be one of the biggest conventions and shows, and it got sunk by COVID. And San Diego Comic-Con, we had it last year, and we had some announcements there, but there hasn't been a lot of hype this year for Comic-Con in general. And I wonder too if it's because, especially with the writer strike going on now, that if that's going to affect some things as well, because there's a lot of support for the writers in the writer strike.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will be there could be a lot of actors and stuff who go to, and if you look at really what's coming down the pipe, there's not a whole lot of big fandom stuff to hype right now. You have the Marvels, which was supposed to come out in July, which is now coming out in November. You have the next Avatar film, but that's another year away. You got the remaining DC films in Blue Beetle and Aquaman, which people are kind of like looking at more like they're in a lame duck status right now. We're in a very big, what feels like a very big transition period.
See, so usually I'd say that actually sounds like very good news for Doctor Who. If all of these things are not in such an advantageous position, this Doctor Who material has, well, at least the stuff we're going to get first, it's already been filmed, it's all in the can, it's all done and dusted, and the campaign, the publicity bandwagon is ready to roll. The wheels must be being oiled as we speak. But you still think that...
But here's the other aspect of it. You've got to take the Disney aspect into it. And Disney has their own big convention, D23, which is their big hype thing for what they're doing with the parks, what movies are coming out, what TV shows are coming out.
When is that usually held?
I believe it's right now they're aiming it for a little later in this year. Sometimes they skip a year on it, but I believe they do have one this year. Ncuti was at D23 last year.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was. He made an appearance at D23 last year.
In what capacity? Was he just one of several sort of big celebs?
That was when they made the announcement of Doctor Who on Disney Plus.
Oh, was it? Now I did see a corporate do that he was at somewhere where he was shaking hands, meeting and greeting, and they just revealed the new old logo. They unveiled the branding at that event. But I didn't know that Ncuti was actually at D23. I didn't know those two things.
But you have to understand, D23 is not like a traditional convention. It's more of a
more corporate
type event. But Disney allows certain members of things to go there and enjoy it as well. But it's more of a media corporate kind of thing. But that's usually where Disney saves their big stuff now. It's for D23 so I think you should see it at San Diego Comic-Con. I hope we see it at San Diego Comic-Con because I think there's a window there for it to really get some foothold foothold going at San Diego Comic-Con to get the ball, like you said, to get the ball rolling.
The fandom will be so disappointed if there's not something there at the end of July. It's the trailer, the Eurovision teaser thing. People were. It's nice to know the episode titles, but generally speaking, people squib.
Yeah, I think my guess though is you will get the big announcements of dates at D23.
So it could potentially be another couple of months. But if that's quite close to the anniversary itself, yeah, I'm still personally, I'm still going for San Diego Comic-Con. I think
all I'm gonna say is don't get your hopes too high.
No, don't say that. I've got Russell T Davies has been speaking about it in a recent issue of the official Doctor Who magazine. He's kind of briefly skirted around it and the entire promotional process. He said the plan is to keep a constant bristle of what's a bristle? I'm not entirely sure. A constant bristle of information, but without giving the audience too much.
I think it's basically leaving breadcrumbs. We're gonna give us a trail of breadcrumbs to follow until the release of the first special.
He says we don't want them thinking that we vanished, but it
right.
is in some respects it does look like that. I mean, we've had Jonathan Groff, we've had Indira Varma, we've had Jinkx Monsoon, we've had all these things. There's been something most weeks like that. Well, and that's very much for what's coming months after the fact. People want to see the curtain come down on the 60th anniversary. And this, if Doctor Who is, the thing is, Kyle, if Doctor Who is going to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, Comic-Con's the biggest geek culture date in the calendar. This is the stage to step up to, if not now.
But the problem is it's dropped off in the last few years. It's not quite what it used to be. For the geek fans, because a lot of people feel Comic-Con has become too corporate in its own right.
Obviously, Doctor Who itself has also suffered a drastic downturn in fortunes. The last time it was at Comic-Con, there was I won't pull no punches about this. I won't try and gloss over it. Jodie Whittaker did make a big impact, didn't she, at the 2018 Comic-Con?
Truthfully, I believe her appearance at Comic-Con in 2019 is what had people so hyped about the change, and that was so people excited because she was great at Comic-Con. She was very personal at Comic-Con. She was great with the fans at Comic-Con, and she generally created at least here in the U.S., she created a lot of buzz about her being the Doctor. But unfortunately, the product didn't match the buzz.
See, that buzz only partly makes its way to the UK because it's so far away, and because in Britain, in the mainstream, that kind of stuff does not get reported, whereas I think it probably does. We have no Entertainment Weekly, for example. Yeah. We don't really have that eye on events like that. It's still seen as a real niche-y, nerdy little thing.
I think that's one of the things it's so interesting right now, and I think it's why Doctor Who, at least in the UK, from what you've told me and what I follow from you guys, they're doing a brilliant job of keeping it in the news.
I wouldn't say a brilliant job. Well, I think they were for several. I think when the 14th Doctor was made his on-screen debut at the end of October, from that moment on, for a few weeks, there was a real buzz, real momentum, and people were talking about the show again. It has died off a touch.
Yeah, but here's the difference, Dan. If we go back to even conversations we had as the final season, Jodie's final season was winding down, you thought you were going to have free time to work on some other projects, do some other things, and you've been pretty much buried in the Doctor Who news since Jodie left.
Yeah.
It's been there's been something to talk about, to where I always felt like between seasons of Jodie's run, there was nothing to even talk about. It's not
just that, that there's been something to talk about. It's been that there's been dialogue around it has been encouraged.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been a chore to try and find anything out. There's that open dialogue between the fan base and the people making the show again. I think it's just that this should ideally be kind of paralleled. An anniversary year should bring us a little more. I think the 50th brought us more. think that as we're standing at the moment, the 40th brought us more. It wasn't even on then. The show was off, and the 30th certainly did. Wasn't on then either.
I think what you're going to see is when we get into the second half of this year, the marketing machine will kick it into high gear.
Yeah, it has to.
The Disney marketing will start kicking in more as well, because it's still not being talked a lot about here in the US. People kind of know.
I did wonder. Had
But
that
they
trailer
haven't-
that we looked at earlier on, the Eurovision teaser thing, had a version of that been
Yeah.
widely seen in America, or is it just on social media channels? If you're already following, if you're already following those channels and signaled your interest in Doctor Who, then you're going to see it. But if you're somebody who hasn't and has forgotten about, that's that show where they got rid of Matt Smith and they put some woman in it. They haven't thought, people who haven't thought about it in friggin' years. Is it reaching them to say, look, it's back. You're probably going to like this again. No,
let me put it this way: when the Disney marketing machine starts in full gear for Doctor Who, and it will, you're going to know it, because Doctor Who will be everywhere.
That's quite promising. I know some people will be frightened about that with the whole Disney thing, but I think generally speaking, I just have to have something. And yeah, as show stopping as Whitaker was at Comic-Con 2018, certainly by all accounts that I've ever heard, people who were actually there, we've had them on the show. That was pretty much the end of it. Doctor Who has not been back there since, and we're a far cry from the times where the entire cast and production crew would be at Comic-Con with a panel and would get a rapturous response and would go back to New York Comic-Con and all the other places. Every single time, a major presence, and it seemed that they belonged there too. And now these seem like halcyon days. I do hope you're right, Kyle, and that we can get back there somehow, even if.
And let's be honest here,
even if it's D23.
Capaldi, as beloved as he is as an actor, he's not a huge deal in the US. I mean, people know him and they like him. Karen Gillan, Matt Smith, David Tennant, and to a lesser degree Arthur Darvill and John Barrowman are part of at least the fandom culture on a regular basis in the United States. Matt Smith, obviously, with Game of Thrones. David Tennant with all the stuff he's done. Arthur Darvill's done a lot of U.S. television. He was recently in the Sandman series that was on Netflix. And of course, Karen Gillan in the U.S. is a superstar.
I do wonder. Yeah, obviously, very much in the Disney camp as well. Maybe they'll have a word, get it back for the 60th too. I do wonder, could there be, if Doctor Who does materialize at Comic-Con, could David Tennant be there? Could Ncuti Gatwa be there? Could they both be there? But I'm also thinking
there's a very good chance Matt Smith could be there promoting season 2 of House of Dragon.
Yeah, in which case, hey, while you're there, but as big as I think that Doctor Who should be, and as crucial as an anniversary always is to people like us, people are sort of obsessed with these things and circling these dates. Given what you just said about Disney Plus, their investment and their ambition for the show, do you think they're going to be swayed by the fact that it is an anniversary year, or is that going to be largely irrelevant to them? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that this is an anniversary year in a business sense. What matters is that this is a colossal salvage job on a much damaged, a fallen franchise. That the real business, the pressing concern, is making a big splash and getting people's attention about now, not then, not the legacy of, but now and what you're going to be seeing soon. And could they not be swayed by, for example, legacy and more of the all new?
That's a fair question, and I think there's two ways to look at this. I do think Disney will play up some on the 60th anniversary when they start their marketing, because it is a big deal. It's 60 years of Doctor Who.
Because the BBC will hear, but that's totally different, isn't it?
Yeah, I think for you there, it's a much bigger deal. And for you locally and there in the UK, it's a much bigger deal than it is internationally. However, here's the catch for Disney. Disney still does not own the streaming rights to anything Doctor Who except for the new material. The modern Who old episodes are still on what is now called Max instead of HBO Max. And
I'd forgotten about that.
Classic Who is streaming on several different things. So right now, Disney does not have access to that Doctor Who legacy.
So why celebrate something that they can't sell people, that they can't show them?
Yeah. So that's the next step for Disney. When those Classic Who rights and the modern Who rights come up again, I am sure Disney will acquire them. At least they will. I'm going to put it this way. I have complete comfort saying as soon as the modern Who, the Tennant run, the Eccleston run, the Matt Smith run through become available when the contract runs out with with Max and Warner Brothers, Disney will be all over that like white on rice. And they will get those rights. Classic Who, because there's just so much weird stuff with Classic Who rights in the US, that one might take a little while, but as soon as Disney is able to acquire modern Who catalog, you're going to really then see that marketing machine kick in even more. But right now, it's basically new Who going forward. And that's what I think that's where Disney can only focus.
The fact is, if everybody doesn't focus on this, I get the audience and the mainstream to focus on this, then there won't be a 70th, 75th anniversary, whichever one the next one's going to be. The book could close on Doctor Who, if not permanently as a thing, then as a TV show for an extended period of time again.
I agree with you, and I think that's another key factor here. Is I think, unfortunately, to market to the rest of the world, you can say 60 years of Doctor Who, but they've got to put the focus on the marketing of what's coming out in the here and the now, because you're like you said, it's like a rebirth. You're going to have a lot of people who don't know all the history of Doctor Who or not familiar with it, who are going to be jumping on it for the first time, starting with these Tennant specials.
I do have, if not a quote as such, that's bang on target about this from Russell T Davies. He has spoken a little about it, again, in Doctor Who magazine, addressing publicity. He said, these are the tricky days right now. We've had the initial rush of excitement come the summer with Comic-Con. But then he puts in brackets, maybe, perhaps, that's not a promise. So it says, come the summer with Comic-Con, and then the BBC's autumn schedule, the heat will begin to intensify. So that's imprint in Doctor Who magazine. That's as much as we've got so far. So that would seem to signal an intent to be there in San Diego come the end of July, I'd say.
I think it would be a wise move. It would be a wise move. I think they need to start getting that built up, not only for the UK audience, but for their international audience, because they are going. Doctor Who, I think right now, is about to become more international than it ever has been, because it's going to reach more markets than I think it ever has been, thanks to Disney Plus.
God, that's music to my ears, Kyle. I knew you'd be the right guy to come on and to talk about this and to fill in some of the gaps at this crucial time in the history of Doctor Who, and near enough the midpoint in the anniversary year. But that is the old girl starting up and calling time on yet another edition of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. I'll be back with another one soon. Look out for that wherever you found this. It could have been at the dedicated home feed for Type 40 over at type40.podbean.com. Maybe we rolled up on the podcatcher of your choice. I'm thinking of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart Radio, TuneIn, or Podbay, any of those places. Then there's a Podbean app itself. We're also on YouTube, the world's largest streaming platform, here on the Spacebook channel. Plus, we're still on the fabulous Fandom Podcast Network's master feed, loaded up with so many treats for your ears. Never mind weekly. You've got it coming at us on the daily over at the Fandom Podcast Network master feed. Kyle, how do you do it, mate?
I have no idea, but I do know we have some very fun stuff that's happened recently. If I may throw out a couple things. Last week was the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. We did a live YouTube broadcast on the Fandom Podcast Network's YouTube channel discussing the 40th anniversary of Star Wars Return of the Jedi with several guests, and we had a great time to talk about our memories of Return of the Jedi, our thoughts of when the last time we saw it on the big screen was, and just where are our thoughts on it from when we first saw it at a much younger age to where we are now. Another one of our great shows is Time Warp, and we are covering right now the 40th anniversary of all the movies of 1983. We just put out our second part of that, and we will be putting out our third part here soon. We're having a blast with that. And of course, we have the Culture Clash has gone strictly live to the Fan Podcast Network YouTube channel. Kevin and I just recently did our first episode called The Franchise, where we take a franchise of either a series of movies or TV shows and kind of dive into its history and figure out where its place in fandom is. And we started off things tying in with one of the big releases here in the United States. Whether you like the franchise or not, you got to admit at this point, with the amount of money it's made, it's a tentpole franchise. And that is, of course, The Fast and the Furious.
Love The Fast and the Furious. Oh, yeah. So if you love The Fast and the Furious and all the stuff that Kyle's been teasing you with there, please consider a trip sideways in time for more of those quality shows from the FPN. Maybe you'd like to have your say about all of this. You can reach out to us through our social media. That's Instagram and Twitter at Type40 Doctor Who. You can email us at type40doctorwho.gmail.com. And if you're feeling really, really brave, you can get us up on your smartphone there and join the Type 40 Facebook group, along with generations upon regenerations worth of Doctor Who fans, classic Doctor Who fans, new Doctor Who fans, and everybody who's there with their fingers crossed and buttocks clenched, waiting for all new Doctor Who that's going to kick off at some point later on this year. We have to be... I suppose we have to Dan, just wait. Oh, God.
To me, it looks like everybody in that picture is looking how they need to download. How do we download our Sonic Screwdriver app?
You could be right. I wouldn't put it past any of them, quite frankly. Yes, so please look us up on Facebook. That's where you can get in on the conversation with lots more companions, friends, and fans just like you. Kyle, where can people reach out to you on social media? You personally, do you tweet, you gram, you do all that jazz?
Yeah, you can. Well, obviously, you find me all over the Fandom Podcast Network, as Dan was saying. But if you're looking for me personally, you can find me on Twitter at @KyleW, or on Instagram at @KyleFandom, or find me as Kyle Wagner on Facebook or on the Fandom Podcast Network Facebook page.
Yeah, and if you're not sick of me banging away about Doctor Who here on Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, you can find me too every Thursday from 8 p.m. live on YouTube and Facebook with Type 40 Live, a live stream magazine show there, completely wild. We never seem to stick to the time that we think we're going to run to, but it's full of lively conversation and with a live chat full of people there on social media watching and commenting along. It really is a riot. So if you haven't tried Type 40 Live there, come to the Spacebook YouTube channel and get in on that and interact with myself and an assortment of other Doctor Who fans from all over the world. It really is an experience, I can promise you. You can reach out to me through Instagram and Twitter too. I'm there as the Spacebook, where I'm wheezing and groaning and ranting and raving about all things geeky inside and outside of the TARDIS in movies and TV and comic books. And now and again, Kyle, the odd bit of everyday real life, believe it or not. Although I do try and I watch what I say, try not to upset too many people. Oh, we're gonna have another one of these catch-ups sooner rather than later, Kyle. I've really missed talking to you, mate.
Yeah, well, it's good to be out of the busy season of work, and now it's back to work. If Kevin doesn't slave drive me too much, But no, I'm looking forward to getting back into doing a little bit more podcasting work and getting back into that aspect. And one of these times I'm gonna have to sneak on the Spacebook because I got to get in on some of these other topics of fandom.
You're always welcome. The doors are always open to you, my friend. You know that. More Doctor Who talk.
In a couple of weeks, I might cause a flashpoint. I'm just going to forewarn So
fabulous. I look forward to that. He's on the starters orders again, everybody. But yeah, that's it for this time. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40. That's it for another one. You take care. We'll speak to you all again soon. Bye-bye.